Hello, and welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. So today, Graham, we're talking about an interesting subject around exiting your business. What's that brand worth that you've built?
Well, if you're asking me, I have got no idea, but our guest will have an idea, and it's Stevey Arroyo. Arroyo? Arroyo.
Arroyo, yeah, it's
Arroyo.
Colombian.
We both share the first four letters of your surname, but mine goes in a different direction to yours. So you're Arroyo. All right. Okay. So, Stevie, welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
You said Colombian. Is that in your family then?
Yeah, I was born over there.
Really?
I've got quite a mixed background. Long story short, born over there. We're Afro-Colombian, so there's the West African link. Mum and grandparents English. Grew up in Pakistan. They went over there and brought me back here.
Hold on. Why do you want to go from Colombia to Pakistan?
No, she went. My grandparents were doctors, and they went to Karachi to be doctors out there, and had 5 kids, raised them all there. Yeah.
Wow, well traveled, eh? Stevie, well, let's start with your website. It's called thebrandexit.co.uk. So if you want to find more about Stevie, that's where you've got to go. But in essence, what you're saying is that you value a brand, presumably for somebody like Kevin or I, getting close to an exit. I don't quite know whether that's what's going to be on my mind. But it does intrigue me as to how you go about placing a value on something like my company.
Yeah, well, the fact it's on your mind is, it might not be on your mind. It needs to be. That's your responsibility as the founder, as the owner of the company when you're going into exit. You can either get sucked up into the nearest system that someone suggests to you, or you can do your research and understand where your assets sit. And if you've built a brand, our saying is if you've built a brand, sell the brand. It's like making a haulage company and forgetting to sell your lorries.
Yeah. I guess so. But okay. That now I've been admonished. I mean, he's come onto this podcast, Kevin, and the first thing he's done is tell me off.
Quite.
John Graham, you should be doing it. Fair enough.
Okay. Tell you off.
Will it help if I define what a valuable brand is?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask a question. How do you get to a valuation? So yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So what your brand is it's a digital asset, and it compounds. You don't go down in awareness. You only tend to go up. And basically, what you're trying to do is the difference between a brand and not a brand. The brand is behind the quality of earnings, and the quality of earnings are the numbers of which the buyers are obsessed over. And when you're in the industry, they ask, what are the numbers, not why or how were they created, and what's the aspect that de-risks the future valuation of this company. So if you've got increased demand and you've got a waiting list of 2 years, that's brand demand. That's a de-risk aspect. And because you've got that waiting list, they're happy to pay more for your product. And we'll go into the different sections of how exactly you value that brand. There's three main topics, but then it becomes transferability. So M&A 101 is that you can't be founder dependent. And so what are you buying? They're buying the brand. And if they're, let's say they're plumbers, why are they buying this particular company? Because it's not the product. It's not Starbucks isn't a brand because it sells coffee. It's because it's Starbucks. And you do this across, there's no industry out there without competition. And therefore, what differentiates you? Brand.
I think that plumbing, Stevie, that you've got a great example there. Fred Smith down the road, plumber, sole trader, comes out and fixes stuff. Probably doesn't have a lot of brand value. But then you look at an organisation that probably everybody's heard of, Pimlico Plumbers.
Yeah.
That's probably got a huge brand value.
Exactly. And so what they are is they're defensible. They're transferable, and they sold for 134 million, where the man in the van down the road couldn't sell if he wanted to. So it's basically just a ticking a ticking time bomb until your body's shot, which is why it should be on your mind when you've built a business.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, I would never sell my business as if it's some sort of badge. Um, well,
It is though, isn't it? I mean, if you understand the way in which people, they're not wrong, but they're not right. So it's almost possible to be both things. So in other words, from their point of view, they've built this thing and it's their badge of honor. And if they're an independent plumber and they've got a good referral value from people who they've worked with, that's not a bad place to be. But they're not Pimlico. And some people might not want Pimlico because maybe they're not quite as trustworthy. Maybe they're not quite as, I don't know what's the right word, but as good a plumber as this guy. So, from the point of view of, and my understanding of brand is, and it's always been, a brand is the experience of the work or the thing that you've paid for. So if you've had a really good experience working with me on a campaign, etc., and I've gone the extra mile, then maybe you'll tell people about me. So, but what's crucial with my job in particular is that they get some results from it. And that isn't absolutely I can't guarantee that because, I'm not God. But basically, I just think there's more than one way of looking at this. But I take your point. If you want to take your business and make money, as much money as possible on the out, when you're getting out of your business, then you probably want to sort of disassociate the individual, that key man insurance thing. You must have a phrase, Stevie, that instead of key man insurance, you have the key man, I don't know.
risk.
Yeah, key
Key
man
man
risk.
risk. That's how it's looked at in
Yeah.
M&A. And that I'm speaking specifically in the M&A topic. I'm from a family. My brother's in construction. I've been in construction. I'm one of these guys. These are my people. And yeah, you're totally right. It depends on if you want a national company. All
Yeah.
I'm saying is, if you don't have a brand that's transferable, defensible, you don't have the option.
No,
So it's no good saying I will never sell my brand. You never had the option in the first place. So it's
no.
optionality is the key there.
Yeah, I mean, we can't, my club can't, probably not going to win the league for a long time because we haven't spent as much money as the Arsenals and that club up in Newcastle and Manchester United so basically we're always going to struggle to catch up, and I think that's the case with small businesses. But is there something that small businesses can do um, to get me, technically, if you think about me, to get me out of it and create certain products and processes that work without me?
Yeah. So firstly, you need to own the asset. So that's defensibility, where if you've got your brand name, start with the domains, have.co.uk, have.com.
Yeah.
The English speaking countries, I've got .com.au as well, just in case.
Mhm.
And then you're looking at the trademarking. So if you've really got a position where you've not got a conflict with 10 other people in your industry and it causes a headache, then trademark it. Best example I can give is that my logo here, I did that on Paint, and it ties back into your point about spending money.
Mhm.
I did my logo on Microsoft Paint. It cost me nothing, because your logo doesn't have to be something amazingly beautiful and look amazing, and you get a 60-page sketch with it. What you need to have is a recognizable symbol of your service. The trademark now, that's where it becomes a valuable asset, and that's the first point. If you're going to build, and how we value brands is, do you own it? If you don't own it, you can't sell it. If it's not
Mm.
defensible, then someone else takes your name in a very similar category. That's your first step, and the easiest one as well.
I good advice. And by the way, if you just look down a little bit, I mean, that is a fantastic view of your brand. It does look good, and the fact that you've told us that you did it on pay, I would have thought you'd have paid an agency about 10 grand for that, but no.
It helps to know what you're doing. So it's an open door, and I like my logos where once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's a few really good examples. And I'll tell you Amazon's one. So It's
Mm.
very clever how they've done the A to Z with a smile. Yeah, like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Fantastic. But that's not their brand. They could have been called the Congo instead of the Amazon. It's the
Mm.
fact that it's they deliver on time when they say they will. They provide when they don't provide the service that they've promised, they refund you. And it turns up reliably next day delivery. Therefore, you go nowhere else. And then it gets reconfirmed. I bought a dog toy. She's a hunting dog. I bought some, dummy pheasants and things like that. And I went on a website that wasn't Amazon and it looked a little bit dodgy, but they had the thing that I wanted. And I had the worst service I've ever had in my entire life. And now guess what I'm doing? I'm never not going through Amazon for dog toys.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
And I've had similar experience recently, Stevie, in upgrading my other halves mobile phones. Um, O2 Business. I found a much better deal with a supermarket chain that has a specialist mobile phone part of it.
mm,
But the customer service received during the buying process, which did not go at all well, meant
mm.
that I went back to the premium brand of O2 Business.
There you go.
How long did you stay with that Aldi phone then?
If Aldi actually gave mobile phones, Graham, that it
You,
would be a great Germanic efficient
you get two
service.
of those phones with with a loaf of bread, don't you, down at Aldi? Maybe not.
I'm talking about the store that gets its cheapest, crappiest quality product possible and says it's price matching with Aldi and Lidl, with
Crikey.
something totally inferior.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not. I think it is a point because if you're offering really rubbish service, then you've got a long way to go, haven't you?
Yeah.
So, but I I like the idea that I fall into the category that I know what my problem is, as in me, and I've got a young assistant who um, and one part of my business, she's making great strides and she understands it and is our in-house AI engineer, and she's really good at it. And I know, and she'll probably watch this, but I know that she could lift herself up and go and work for somebody else if she wanted to. But I'm such a great boss. But the thing is, but at the end of the day, she's grown over the last 18 months, and let's just say in another 18 months, she's going to be off the chart. So I really do think there's a way to actually develop people within your team who can. You've still got the key person aspect there, but potentially the more that we can build solutions which are um, um, defensible and also without necessarily needing an expert. And just a slight diversion. I was on a call last night and with a guy called Flint McLaughlin, and Flint was explaining how we're moving from AI assistants to AI executives. And the difference is the delegated power. One will kind of help you. We know what an AI assistant is, a sort of chat GPT and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people swear by it, but it's a bit, you're dependent with it. It's a bit like the key, you're still involved. If you can get the AI executive to, I want to be able to build an app that does this, and it'll go away and do it. And I've seen this. They did it on my company last night. And it's just literally awesome. And we're moving into a different era, one that will make it slightly easier, certainly my company, to take myself out of it, but we're not there yet. So I think AI might just help people achieve that kind of, I don't know whether it's a brand exit, but a negotiated key person exit so that the company is left with whatever you think is going to be worth some money, Stevie. I'm sorry, I'm going off in a roundabout way to say there are ways for people like me and Kevin and others who basically are the most important thing in the company to unpick themselves using AI and systems associated with it.
Yeah, of course, of course. One thing to be careful of with AI at the moment is that they do a lot on the front end, but there's a lot of technical debt. So if you're building an app, for example, you might go into the weeds with it, and then
Yeah.
it costs more to fix some of the stuff. So
Yeah.
that's fine. And another movement. So although M&A 101 is that you remove the key man risk, there is a movement happening at the moment because there's opportunities for key men to stay on and become advisors as long as you can kind of step back a bit and you don't mind having to rule the roost so much anymore. But one of the biggest movements in the retired uh, demographic is that
Mm,
they do consultancy.
mm,
They do high paid consultancy because of the years worth, the years and decades worth of experience that they've built.
mm,
Of course, that's invaluable. So, you're on the board, for example, or you're there to consult or things like that. So it's not over, and that's a big misconception when you're exiting. And I think that's where it really comes from. It's the fear of I don't want to sip pina coladas on the beach. Yeah, no one's asking you to, except
They
when
don't
you,
sell them in Morecambe. Really,
yeah.
no, you're not
Well,
going to get them there.
when you exit your business, what you're doing is you're creating a financial base to do whatever you want to next, whether that's running a charity, whether that's going on holiday and enjoying yourself, around the world trip to see the animals you've never seen, to see the monuments that you've never seen. Fantastic. You do it from a position of power. And if you've if you've watched The Weakest Link, yeah, the program, have you ever seen when they get to like four right answers and you're screaming at the TV going, bank this. The nutter's about to get asked the question and you're going to lose it all. And unfortunately, with the uprise of AI, there's more products than ever, there's more disruption than ever. We might be running a 25-year business going at 10 mil, and for some reason it gets undercut because, like you said, an agent has built some younger guy has built an agent that wipes out your industry.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
fear mongering there, but it's inevitable. Nothing.
It is.
It's
It,
entropy.
it, it is. And well, assuming then that um, the brand is exactly what I've taken myself out of my company,
Hmm.
largely. Maybe I've built myself. Maybe that's the point. Maybe I build myself my version in AI. Just download everything I think I know, etc. And then anybody can just use that within the firm, for instance, processes, decisions, that kind of thing. What decision would you make, Graham? Blah blah blah. So basically, you could potentially do it that way. But for me, I like the idea that I I don't like the idea of selling the company, but I do like the idea of actually enjoying the fruits of the labor. It's awkward, isn't it? Like, people say you can have two things and they might not both be the same, but they both can be right.
Hmm. Of
Um,
course.
and I just find it difficult to sort of come to terms with the fact that at some stage in the fairly near future,
This industry is built off empathy. It seems like when you get private equity involved and venture capital and things like that, that it's like this cutthroat thing. Well, I don't know. I can't speak for the others, but mine was certainly built on equity because I look at founders like you guys and go, I want the best for you. And if it doesn't last forever, which nothing does, how do you make sure that you've got a return on your investment for the blood, sweat, and tears that you've put into it? The thing that shudders me in my core is thinking you get to a point where you have to close shop, and then what? You know, and knowing us founders, we pay ourselves the least and we pay ourselves last, especially to start with, and things like that. And so you deserve the exit that you could possibly have. You just got to get the right team around you.
Mm.
yeah,
And
I've got to say I'm very impressed with Stevie's knowledge of our businesses. It's almost like he's had a look at the books. And probably Appleby, you've done something about that. I can see that. Um, but
But Graham, I'm minded back to a previous guest of ours. Do you remember we had Matt Rad on, who was talking to us about buying and selling online businesses? He was
oh right,
very much
yeah,
in the M&A space.
yeah.
And he was essentially saying that, look, entrepreneurs can buy websites, develop them a bit, refurbish them, sell them on. And you get into that space and you realize that a successful website quite often has a personality involved in there. That there's a that to make the brand stand out, there's a person associated with the brand. Now, Stevie, that becomes a very interesting situation that, you know, take the person away. How do you maintain the brand value in situations like that?
The brand is its own entity. You're actually serving the brand. It becomes bigger than you. Otherwise, I don't know. Except sometimes it can be. I don't want to sound take this wrong. Sometimes it can be ego based, which is understandable. It's all we all get that. I didn't necessarily create the brand exit because this is what I am and this and that. I knew what I was best at. I knew that I spotted a gap in the market. I understood who I was trying to serve, and the brand exit is now its own. If I'm building a team so that they can replace me.
Mm.
Yeah.
You've got the guides, and people dip in and out. So it's much more based on. So there's a mixture now. So it's demographics traditionally, but it's also psychographics, and you find a niche within those psychographics because if you spent 2 months researching and you find one person, if you extrapolate that across 60 million people in the UK, there's probably about 100,000 people. That's 0.0001% of the entire population. However, if you manage to serve all those 100,000 people with a premium product, you're laughing. And that will continue on with or without me. And in fact, it gets better because I bring on the best people. I am actively trying to displace myself. Because once you peek behind this M&A curtain, it's hard to not see, it's hard to not be drawn in because like you've been indicating, the company that you've built has become your identity rather than an asset. And the danger of that, which is great, but the danger of it is if it goes down, so does your identity. And therefore,
I
again,
don't know.
empathy wise.
Not sure that I'm saying that exactly, but I know, inevitably every day I'm working in the business and so forth, and my name's on, the header sort of thing. But I think I agree with you. What's been happening over the last 12 years or so of doing this is that a brand has slowly been grown, and so that I get found now on LLMs, really without asking. Before long, they'll be asking for money. But the point is, right now, they're being very generous and allowing me to be found, and that creates. I'm not sure it necessarily creates a huge amount of extra business, but it does. It's just that what it does is it strengthens the brand. Because if you're in my case, people come to me for high net worth people, sophisticated investors, that kind of thing, and they come and they do a little search on, and they always find me. So I'm inextricable, not me, not they. Sometimes I say, "So what's your name?" Ah, so it's
Yeah,
worked.
there you go.
If basically they find the name of the company and what it can do and how it answers a particular problem, then my job's done. I could get Kevin to come down from Northumberland and sit in this chair, and he could do it. Not that he would, but he wouldn't need much training to do the job. And I think that I've then built a brand. So that I think I'm listening to what you're saying, and personally, and a lot of people potentially listening will resonate with that. That they've got to be able to find a pathway to not so much get themselves out, but to get themselves out of the way. And I think that's something that maybe you could help them with, or is it something you do, or have they got to be out of the way before you come in, or what stage do you help people with?
So it depends. What we work best as is when we're in your 3 year. So let's say, for example, you say between 3 and 5 years or 2 to 5 years, we want to start planning our exit. That's where we take the company as an individual company. We'll find out exactly what needs to happen. If it's super founder led, we'll help you transition. If it's not, great. But you're missing in this. So we find the strengths, weaknesses, and gaps with each company as an individual, because that's the beauty of this industry is every single brand is totally individual, or it should be. And if you're not, then we can help you get there. You touched on the AI stuff. So
Mm.
what you're talking about is discoverability, and brand has so many tentacles into product, finance, operations, aesthetic, media, the lot. It goes into all these different things. What you're talking about here is the discoverability. And what is a brand with if it's not if people aren't aware of it? It's like a tree falling in the forest if no one's there. But the thing about this GEO stuff, this AI SEO, is that you have to be super specific for it to find you because now we've changed the format from Google as a one-liner and it gives you what, like 10 different results after the ads of which you skip. And you've got much more of a conversational style. And if you understand how how these LLMs are built, they use their tokens basically, and there's millions of them trying to find the right thing. So it's super, super specific, and therefore your brand has to be super specific. The people that are finding the highest results on this is someone that knows who they serve, does it well, and
Mm.
has a reputation. There is ways that you can. I don't know if you've actively tried to become more discoverable, but
I provide a service to do that. So we call it answer engine optimization. But there's more to that kind of gives you that's to find out where you are, and that'll tell you more or less where you are. But then there are other things that you can do to change the way in which you effectively write the answers that are picked up. And there are certain rules that not rules, but understandings that if you follow this path, then you'll get found because you're answering the question in an astute way. A great way of doing it is having a frequently asked questions thing on pretty much every page, or a glossary, or that you're chunking bits of what you're doing so they can pick up the chunk and then drop that into the answer. So if you're answering the questions, then you're getting found, and therefore, and that's I think what people are. That's how they're finding me because I've done that over years, not just because of AEO. So yes, I kind of get the subject and I've invested in that, but for me, it's a way to help you transition between the Google approach and where it's going. But Google's not going away. It's just going to be another alternative to AEO. It's just going to there's
Google,
still SEO is still going to be important, but AEO I think will be dominant in a couple of years' time.
Google is absolutely a valuable resource because of the nature of the question. It has no background. You're going onto it fresh, and therefore you get a very objective answer. Whereas we know ChatGPT, what it's really done is designed to encourage you to continue using ChatGPT into your rabbit hole and things like that. And so
Sure.
Google had, I remember I thought I was going crazy at one point. I was only a few weeks in, but I was impatient. And I just wondered, am I crazy with trying to bring this to the market? And typed in, is brand equity a business asset to Google? And the AI come up. Yes, brand equity is a critical asset. It's an intangible one with very tangible results. I was like, thank you very much, Google AI. Love you. I'll continue this mission.
If you well, okay, they do tend to be quite nice. I've got one in the car now. She's called Eve, and what Elon's put all Teslas. He's got an update, and people get really engaged with this. But you can just talk to Eve. Got a sexy voice, and she basically, but she calls me love. And last week she was saying yes and love, and she was putting love after every, because in Yorkshire you use love. She must have heard me saying. And I said, well, you're using love too much. Oh, I'm so sorry. You know, so, but it's changing the way in which but she'll allow me to get to the point, it's a bit like you're doing, Stevie. But basically, she'll then listen and then give a really good answer. I'm so impressed with well, with Grok in particular, but with other, I love Claude. Not so much Anthropic. I think they did something recently where I think it was Anthropic who somebody put on there Charlie Kirk, good man or bad man? Bad man. George
Uh,
Floyd, good man or bad man? Good man. Now, I find that absolutely disgraceful. Completely the wrong way around. And for me, that's a that that's more than programming. That's almost but I love Claude, you
Yeah.
know. But it's there are things like that that I really hate about LLMs.
But
Well,
hey,
there's
Graham, we digress.
We do. Sorry.
I think
Yes.
Stevie's message here, and you asked him when can he best add value. We're talking 3 to 5 years from the exit. I think that says that, hang on, brand is something that really takes a long time to develop.
Mm,
I guess at the moment we can do things if AEO is going to become such a big thing, we can do things quite quickly to get ahead of the curve on that one because very few organizations are really thinking about it properly. But generally, if you're going to Stevie and saying, I'm selling next week, what's my brand worth? He can give you an answer. But if you go to Stevie and say, I'm selling in 3 years' time, what's my brand worth? You've got loads of opportunity to do things in that 3 year period that are going to enhance the value.
it's a compound curve. It's a classic compound curve. And it depends on who you are, I suppose. So if Nike rang me and went, "Can you value my brand? I'm selling this year," then fantastic, yeah. We've got our processes. We can turn this around in months as far as the actual certified brand valuation. But where I love is the value creation aspect. It's a big part of what the real benefit of my services. It's the quality of earnings. So we help you improve your margin. We help you improve pricing power. We help all these different things. We lower your marketing spend because your brand has more resonance. You don't have to knock on 100,000 doors. How about 10,000? But you convert on 50% of them. You get the same numbers with much less. And again, once I'm not also selling you branding services or expensive ones at that. I'm telling you how to compound what you've got. And so it just filters in. And I love this industry because you work with a team of specialists. I don't speak too much on the accounting or the law, or you're obviously aware because there's a general context, but everyone comes in and provides their own specific values so that you can raise your valuation. You might have been doing the same, but if you forgot or just willfully ignored or for whatever reason you don't value your brand, well, you've just lost 10 to 20% of your company value. And depending on who you are, so there's different ways of, if we go back to how we value, so there's different ways of looking at it. And one of them is replacement value. So how much have you spent on this so far? And what's the ROI on it? And how much, if someone didn't buy your brand, would they have to, if you said you want to buy my company, but you don't want to buy the brand exit brand, then how long would it take you to create a similar, how much money and time would it take? The other one is licensing. So the methodology and this is nothing new, like I've said. This is a ISO standard which was made in 2010, 10668. And it's the international ISO standard for monetary brand valuation. And the real crux of it is it's called relief from royalty. So basically, because you own that brand, you don't pay the licensing fee on it. And if you were to license it to someone else, how much would that cost? And so that's your basis of it. And again, if we bought Apple and didn't buy their brand, then who are we? We're just a phone company. And then what happens if Apple then says, right, and I'm selling my brand to Samsung? You've got no legs. Your risk just went through the roof, as well as your costs. And that's the power of brand.
mm. So it's a fascinating area. I've always struggled a little bit with brand because it means so many different things to people. But having said that, it is for me still an experience but it's almost like you have to price in the experience that people have. I think that would be a better definition of brand. But do you have an even better definition of brand than what one that I've been trying to eke out there?
There's various ones out there, and you're right, it's a difficult subject, but one of the good ones is what does someone say about you when you're not in the room? Like we mentioned Amazon earlier. What I'm speaking on behalf of Amazon.
Yeah.
There's let's say there's 100 to let's say there's 1,000 people listening to this. straight away. Well, they've just got reconfirmation of that Amazon's a premium brand. And the other one is just it's experience based, but it's also your financial driver. I can't see a way around that. It's the way you build a pricing premium and therefore de-risk your business and therefore generate the income that even keeps your doors open.
So if I'm on your the part of your the brand exit .co.uk page where you talk about a 20 or 30% higher valuation. So if so you get you involved, then basically, let's just say instead of the business being worth a million, it's worth, I don't know, 1.2 or 1.3 million.
There you go.
So given that I'd only pay you about, I don't know, 50,000 quid or whatever it is, whatever your fee is, that's a reasonable return on investment. So that would make sense to do. Um, how though, you said you go in and it's not just about sort of pricing an exit. You've almost, in a 3-year period, you've got some work to get done. So you probably prioritize that work and help them or get people to help them. What is it that you do for people?
So we go through your strengths, weaknesses, and gaps. Your strengths being, what do we build on? What do people know you for? Let's you really use that. And if people really know you for the founder, we try and we try and lean that back. That's the one part where we would take a strength and go, right, let's make that
Yeah.
exitable. And then the gaps is the weaknesses are low hanging fruit. So your website, for example, may not have the conversion button at the top saying buy now, or you might not be dealing with abandoned carts, or you might not be your vans, for example, may be tired and old, and therefore you're not representing your brand. And it turns out that you get a lot of calls from these rolling billboards where your van itself is the fastest depreciating asset out there, yet the brand is what pulls the money into the company because it provides the contact details, the fact you even noticed it, and then you've obviously got to pull the proof in the pudding kind of thing. You've actually got to do the job. Then they've got to tell their mates, and so it's this whole system, and basically it's the customer journey. That's what we're focusing on. We're looking at your customer journey so that you compound your earnings. The gaps are, like we were saying, for example, you might not have AEO, GEO, whatever, discoverability on these AI platforms. Well, that's where we would contract the expert to come in and do that. And what we do is then manage that. So we're on the client side. And you, as a plumber, when have you dealt with the creatives before? Where are your contracts? This and that, where are your deliverables? So we project manage and make sure you get the best price for it without thinking that this is just an artist or whatever, or some sort of floozy person that doesn't deserve a premium for what they do. So as long as you've got the money to invest in quality, we'll make sure you provide that quality, and that then becomes a part of your ecosystem of brand. We look at your supply chain. Like I said, with Amazon, are you delivering efficiently and reliably? There's all these different aspects. Is your product? So where is your product position? Do you only have one product? Because let's say we all know how this, let's say, small gadget game works. You bring out something, it gains traction, China copies it, or India copies it, or whatever. And so therefore you're de-risking everything. So you need an extra product. I'm on a lot of Google's ecosystem because they've got a product portfolio, and therefore they're diversified, and also they've got the metrics to say this person bought again. That is the biggest metric. Did they buy again? We don't know why. Brand is probabilistic, it's not deterministic, and therefore we can't say exactly why every single time. We can use data, but we can't understand the various differences that we think we're putting out into the world. But we do have now the data to say they are buying again. We find out why. And let me go back to the three aspects of value in a brand. So there's the legal, which we covered right at the start. There's the financial. So interestingly, I was on a call earlier with a guy who does, or his previous company, they made base layers for sport. So, like the skins that people do, that people have and stuff. And they got the technology that basically wicked off the sweat, as all of them do, but also kept you totally waterproof. A difficult thing to do. And they got I think it was the University of Liverpool. They did a study on the different brands that serve these base layers, from Nike to Gymshark to Arc'teryx and things like that. And they found that they had better results basically. And so, if they were to bring me in as a consultant, for example, the first thing I would say is use that. That's a strength. You've just had an independent analysis based on your competitors, and you've come out on top. Now, you think it's safe to charge 100 for this thing? Charge 500 for this thing, because now you're going into the premium aspect, the premium area of the industry. That's what, again, that I always go back to quality of earnings. You're all making the same thing to a certain degree, but the ones that build the brand, that have the premium product, they're the ones that people want. You'd think that they could make, let's say they're 10 times more. You'd think that they would make 10 times less and make the same money. Brand compounds. People want it more. People want it 10 times more. So this company is now 100 times more efficient. So, do you see what I mean? This is the power of it. And so you're building that case basically based on this ISO standard, so that when it comes towards the end, this is an undeniable asset. And the last aspect is, so the M&A industry is obsessed with tangibility and valuation. Two totally juxtaposed words. Value is totally subjective. If we had Princess Diana's ring and took it to the big sapphire one, the big famous one, if we took that to the local jewelers with no background, they'll say this is a quality sapphire, 50,000. If we put it on Facebook Marketplace, we'll get 50 quid for it. And if we put it in a Sotheby's auction, we'll get 50 million for it. And so that's what we then help with, because there's no difference selling your business to selling your product. It's about positioning and creating competitive tension that makes multiple people want it. I did another example of this with Kevin last time, where I was talking about my Auntie Anne's house. If you've got an architecturally significant house, do not get the standard guy with a clipboard to tell you how many bathrooms and how many square feet this is. If it's created by Frank Gehry, there's a whole market for that. Forget the square footage. And that's what I help, is that if you've built a brand, sell the brand. And therefore you get all the benefits that come with that if you put yourselves in the right circles.
I think at that point, you've brought us to the point where Kevin's itching to ask you another question, but we're getting close to the point where we've got to wrap things up. But Kevin, you had a
I was
question.
just going to make an observation here, Graham, that says, take this away from exit to the position where you might be starting a business. It's this brand, to understand brand value. It's, you could go and set up a coffee shop yourself with your own name and all the rest of it, or you could go and buy, for example, a Starbucks franchise. Okay. Brand value is all about the things that allow Starbucks to charge money for that franchise, almost. What have you got? You've got a coffee shop named Kevin Appleby versus a coffee shop named Starbucks.
Franchising is a really good example of this. So you get nutters in this business world, don't you? That start companies and this and that. What you're doing, the clever ones might start that franchise and say, "There's my de-risk. People know who I am. People are ready to pay £5.50 for the coffee. I'm getting the everything that comes with it, that de-risks the starting point and future of it. Because you're under a brand, it's a really, really good example there. You might make the next great coffee shop, and you might only want to be a small coffee shop. That's fine too. But
No,
if you want to build a brand,
I'd have a coffee at Kevin Appleby's because, he's quite he's quite detailed in his thinking. He's probably going to get it right. He probably tastes quite nice. Get the right beans and all the rest of that. So yeah, I think I'd have a coffee at your place, Kevin. Especially if
Yeah.
you're wearing that jumper. I think you'd have the BHS crowd in there. It'd be all right. We'd all be enjoying it. But on that scurrilous moment, I just want to say, Stevie, thank you for joining Kevin and I on the next 100 Days podcast.
So, Graham, I think we learned a lot today about the value of brand.
Yeah, when you're about to or move towards an exit, and even if you're not ready, then here's Stevie, and he's
Hmm.
kind of got a plan to get you from A to Z, and Z being the exit. So, or maybe it's T the exit, because you'll probably have a few steps after that as well. But whether that's just enjoying the money or whatever. But
It does say that you've got a plan, 3 to 5 years ahead if you're going to
yeah,
exit. There's
mm,
lots of things, and something we teach in Grow CFO when we're looking to help CFOs through the exit process. We're
mm.
talking about a 3-year exit plan with there's all sorts of things apart from brand that you need to sort out.
Well, whether that becomes a feature of our podcast going forward, Kevin, as we're going through this, certainly from my point of view, my plan is, as I mentioned, replace myself with systems that potentially can replace what I'm doing, and then build enough strength for the brand to carry the next Guardians to the next level. So that's my plan. But yes, a very, very intelligent young man, and with a good brand. And the brand exit.co.uk can't be that bad, can it?
that's a very good brand, and indeed, yes. So, Graham, I think we ought to bear in mind that brand is important for a number of reasons that Stephen mentioned on the way as well. Like, you know, what is it that allows Starbucks, for instance, to charge £5 for a cup of coffee, where the guy down the street can only charge £3.50? You know,
Yeah,
get your brand right. It comes through in your pricing, your revenues. Even if you're not exiting, it's an important thing to do.
yeah, I agree with you, Kevin. I just think it's for a small business. There's the Dan Kennedy School is very much it's about selling stuff. Brand comes with the experience that people have. You don't kind of set out to build a brand. You set out to build positive experiences of your work.
Yeah, and there are elements of Dan Kennedy came through to me loud and clear as Steve was talking. As one example, he said, "Oh, you've created this. Okay, well, first thing we've got to do is go increase your price.
Yeah.
Let's 10x that."
No,
Now that to
no,
me sounded just like Dan
no,
Kennedy.
it did. It very much did. And whether or not you can get away with that, don't know. But the logic is that a
Yeah,
certain percentage of the market will always buy the best quality product at the highest price.
yeah,
Um, so that comes down to the purchase of the my new Tesla. It's not necessarily the most expensive, but compared to some other brands, it certainly is.
mm,
Um, and so, but I like the brand.
yeah.
Anyway, on that bombshell, I've been Graham Arrowsmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.
Goodbye.